All right, well, hello everyone. So my name is Anthony Bodlovic. I'm the program director at Loyola Marymount University's Marital Family Therapy program with specialized training in art therapy. So if that is why you're here, you're in the right room. If you're not here, stay if you'd like. I'm going to go over the program a little bit as well as the admissions process. And if you have any questions at the end, then I will go over them for you. So let's begin. All right. So yeah, so if there's any questions you have, you can feel free to type it into the chat box, and then I will be happy to answer them as we go. And so, like I said, this is where you are. And I think it's helpful to situate the fact that our program is within the College of Communication and Fine Arts because of the centrality of the art in our program. So other programs in art therapy and MFT sort of have different tracks where you might have a marital family therapy courses and art therapy courses, but our program is fully integrated in the art making process. So all of our courses are taught by art therapists and have integrated art in them, even if you're learning about marital family therapy theories. And so this is the Dean of the College of Communication and Fine Arts, Bryant Alexander. Our founder was Helen B. Langgarden, who passed, and she wanted to bring art therapy into clinical sphere. So there's a lot of individuals who use art and use the art making process as a healing process. For those of you who make art yourself, you might know that art making itself can be very healing. And so we also encourage that in our program, but also give you strong clinical training skills. So you can work with individuals of varying diagnoses, various populations. So what is art therapy? Hopefully some of you know a little bit about it, but this is the definition based from the American Art Therapy Association. And so what I think is helpful here is just the wide breadth of this work. So it's an integrative mental health and human service profession that enriches the lives of individuals, families, and communities through active art making, creative process, applied psychological theory, and human experience within a psychotherapeutic relationship. When facilitated by a professional art therapist, it effectively supports personal and relational treatment goals, as well as community concerns. It's used to improve cognitive and sensory motor functions, foster self-esteem and self-awareness, cultivate emotional resilience, promote insight, enhance social skills, reduce and resolve conflicts and distress, and advance societal and ecological change. That's a lot of stuff. But the idea is that as art therapists, we also see ourselves as members of the community and activists. So there are a lot of different ways that art therapists practice. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, from hospitals to clinical settings to more community work. But there's also a quote from a 9-year-old client that art therapy is time to draw what's on my mind, which is maybe a more simple definition than the art therapy associations. But one of the questions that I often get when I tell people I'm an art therapist, which I am, is, oh, you work with kids, or you work with older adults. And actually I work with married couples primarily in my practice. And so I think that it's sort of a thing that people associate, I think, with younger kids, because it's sort of like that's when we're still kind of interested in drawing and making art. And then as we get older, unless it becomes a talent or a passion of ours, we kind of let it go. But sort of a fundamental part of being a human is to express ourselves metaphorically and through expression, whether it's the way we fashion our hair or clothes. So kind of bringing that back to people in a therapeutic process, I think, is very helpful. It puts someone in a creative mode and puts someone in a place of having agency. So we'll talk more about that too. Okay, now our program. So our program integrates, as I mentioned before, art therapy and family systems oriented, informed by psychodynamic perspective. We embrace a multicultural focus throughout the curriculum, and we're approved by both the American Art Therapy Association and the California Board of Behavioral Sciences. So this means that this degree is going to prepare you for licensure as a marital family therapist to practice in California, and to prepare yourself for registration as an art therapist. And you will have to complete extra hours after you finish the program and to be able to apply for licensure. And I'll talk about the differences in what it means to be a trainee versus an associate versus having your own license. So this is the suite in the building, which I am not in. I'm in my dining room right now, even though it looks like I'm at Loyola. So we are not there. We're all online currently, but this is where when we were in person. And I'll talk a little bit about how we've transitioned to online as well. I'm not sure what fall 2021 will bring, but we're prepared for either in-person, hybrid, or online. So let me go over a little bit of the faculty here. So Deborah Linesh is the interim department chair and associate professor. Deborah is sort of a founding member of the art therapy profession, wrote a lot of seminal text on art therapy, especially working with adolescents. She's actually retiring, but she's been with the department for a very long time, worked closely with Helen B. Landgarden. Then there's me, I'm the program director. I'm also a practicing artist, so I really holding on to my art identity is very important. And so I show in galleries, and a lot of my research is based around creating work. So as opposed to just publishing literature and articles, I think about showing in gallery spaces or community spaces as another way of disseminating information. We also have Dr. Lavinia Jackson, who is now the director of the Art Therapy Research Institute. We'll talk about that a little later on, but Dr. Jackson's research primarily focuses on cultural humility and has brought a lot of her research into the department, into the way that we organize ourselves and the students and into the coursework. She just completed a book, her first book, called Art Therapy and Cultural Humility. Then we have Dr. Einat Metzel, who's currently teaching in Israel. She's on leave currently, but she also a prolific researcher and had completed a text about art therapy and sex therapy. Relatively new to the team is Jessica Bianchi. She's been with the department for a very long time, but she's currently the director of the clinic, the Helen B. Landgarden Art Therapy Clinic, which is housed within our department, which I'll go over a little bit later. And we have Dr. Joyce Yip Green, who is also a relatively new full-time instructor who completed her PhD in international psychology. So she brings a lot of her research working in other places and spaces. It's I think a pretty good group of people. What I really appreciate about our faculty is that everyone is actively engaged in research or in clinical work. So they're just not individuals who are teaching you things they learned a while ago, but they're actively participating in community endeavors, in research, and their own clinical practice. Like I mentioned, I have my own private practice still. And it's helpful to kind of have that active engagement. And also the faculty are constantly having new projects in which students and alumni can participate in. We also have staff. So we have Kathleen Fogel-Richmond, who is our full-time practicum coordinator, which I think is one of the real impressive kind of things that we offer in the program is practicum is the place where you practice your training while you're in school. Other programs, you have to sort of find your practicum or they give you a list and you interview, but Kathleen really works with our students, sits down with them individually and helps them figure out where they would best be placed. And we have, and she has made a lot of partnerships with community mental health spaces. And so we have a lot of agencies who hold spots for our students. And then we have Lori Gloyd, who is our senior administrative coordinator, who you might have, if you've already been asking questions about the program, might have interfaced with, kind of holds everything together. So yeah. Now, I'm just going to walk you through what it would be like to go through the program on a 2-year track. We have a 2-year and a 3-year track. I'm going to go through the 2-year and then kind of explain what the 3-year track looks like as well. This is actually Jessica Bianchi, our instructor, who was a student at a time. These pictures are from 2008, but she's also from my graduating class, so you might see me in some of these photos. We should probably take update some photos, get some new faces in here. So the first semester, you are in class 3 days a week, and you're starting on Tuesdays with art therapy studio explorations and clinical applications, which is where you're kind of understanding the clinical art properties of art. And so kind of starting in a studio class where you explore different materials and what they mean. And you're also learning about mental health services. So before, marital family therapists used to be more of a private practice track, and social workers used to be more geared toward the community, but the lines between those two degrees are really blurred. And so we are preparing our students to work in community mental health spaces as well and understand the mental health field in general. So that's what the introduction to mental health services helps you understand. Wednesday, you start to get some of the foundational literature and theories around art therapy, marital family therapy, and then you're starting with child art psychotherapy. Thursdays, you're learning psychopathology, which is learning the DSM, the diagnoses, and how to use that. You're learning about how to look and read at psychological tests, and you're starting to understand how to participate in facilitating group therapy experiences. So it's a lot of courses, but what I have to say too is that our program focuses primarily on reflection and art making as ways of knowing. So a lot of the writing you'll be doing, a lot of the assessments you'll be having are based on self-reflection, application of theory to life, and also in art. So there's not a lot of like flashcard memorization, taking multiple choice tests, and sort of like studying all night and then forgetting everything after you've taken the test. We're really trying to have you have a lot more experiential learning. And so it kind of becomes integrated into the way that you see the practice of therapy. I think this is especially a good example in the first semester of the first year in child psychotherapy. You actually go to Dolores Mission and you observe some children in their natural habitats. And so it's a way to kind of start getting, making art with kids, to start understanding how to look at their art through a developmental lens, and also getting more comfortable facilitating a kind of art making process. This year, we also went to Dolores Mission, but we went there virtually, as a lot of the students are in virtual learning spaces. So we had our students facilitate that first kind of virtual visit, which went very well. The principal had nothing but positive things to say, and the students had a really great time. So we've really done a great job of trying to figure out how to move that art making into a virtual space. Now, you have already finished your first semester and we're on to the second, and this is me. I don't know what happened then. I think I dyed my hair black for some reason. I was feeling it, you know? Okay, so now we're moving into the second semester. And this is another thing I think is great about our program is you get 2 practicums, not 1, but 2 practicums. So the first practicum is in your second semester of your first year. You're getting right into it. But it's helpful because it's a shorter practicum and it's just getting you used to that process. And what it's like to kind of start making art with individuals. You're now in class 2 days a week because you have your practicum, and you're continuing the marital family therapy theory track, but those children have grown up so fast and now they're adolescents, and so you're focusing on adolescent art psychotherapy. And family observation, where you're watching or applying, looking at couples and families and sort of starting to look at that work through observation, mostly of videos currently. Thursdays, you will start with drug and alcohol treatment for 5 weeks, and then now they're adults already and going into adult art psychotherapy. 612 is a course that's designed to help you in your practicum. So it goes over the issues and applications of how do I have my first session? How do I have termination, which is a terrible word for ending therapy, but it's called termination. Yeah, one of the students was like, termination, I won't be back. So yeah, it's that joke. Okay. And then introduction to research, because we are also a master's level program, and the field is so new that there's so much room for research and so many room for voices. So if you're interested in research or of any kind, it's a really great field to get into. We've had students who've published right after or even before they even graduated because of just kind of picking up some of the research they did in the program. So Intro to Research is just like a 5-week course that that just helps kind of introduce you to some of the foundations of research approaches and theories. And like I said, you're in your practicum for the second semester as well. We'll go into a little more about that. So the practicum, the first practicum is sort of, oh wait, no, before we go to that, let's go to juvenile hall. I forgot about this. So just as in child, you when you go to Dolores Mission, in the adolescent course, embedded in it is a visit to juvenile hall. So meet with incarcerated adolescents in the juvenile justice system and make art with them as well. And it's interesting because a lot of people come to the program feeling like, I just want to work with this population. I just want to work with kids, or I don't want to work with kids. I want to work with, and I don't want to work with substance use, or I do. But so a lot of individuals had hesitation about going to juvenile hall. There was a lot of assumptions or biases about the population. And Deborah Linesh, who was teaching the course at the time, did a survey of the students to see their anxiety or apprehension about going to juvenile hall. And you can see that there was a lot of individuals who were somewhat apprehensive or apprehensive, kind of tapering down. But then after their visit, the anxiety and apprehension went down, which is why I think it's really great that we have two practicum experiences, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you might find a population that you think is like, oh, I don't know if I can work with them. Maybe I feel too young or too old or not. But then when you do, you realize, wow, okay, like doing this work, I can probably do it with anybody. And so it can really open and expand your horizons about how you see yourself in the field and how you want to practice. Now the practicum. So the practicum is 15 weeks and about 16 hours a week. And it's mostly short-term treatment models. So you might be placed in a space where maybe people are coming in for brief therapy, or they're just there for a couple of sessions. It might be like a methadone clinic where someone is coming in and has to have a conversation with the therapist before they're able to get their medication. And you have an on-site clinical supervisor and an off-site art therapy supervisor, because sometimes you don't, the clinical supervisor you have on-site might not be familiar with art therapy. So we provide you with an art therapist as well to help supervise you at this time. There's a video that I think I'm gonna actually just show you. So I'm gonna stop sharing for a second and take a pause. So I'm going to show you this video. It talks a little bit about the practicum. You'll hear Kathleen speak. It's on our website, so you might have seen it already, but I think it's worth another look. And also some students who talk a little bit about their practicum experience. So I'm going to now switch over to this. And
Practicum training is putting into practice the clinical learning that students are getting in the classroom. So they go out into the field and they work with actual clients, providing art therapy to benefit the clients as well as to allow them to learn really how to do this work. What's really unique about the practicum training at LMU is that we have long-standing relationships with many agencies throughout Southern California. Additionally, our students are placed directly into their agencies and do not have to go out into the community to try to find their own placements. And the agencies and the students really benefit from this partnership.
The agency I worked at is the Children's Hospital of LA in the Expressive Arts and Therapies department, where we have art therapy, dance therapy, and music therapy.
I was placed at Department of State Hospitals Metropolitan. It's a psychiatric hospital, and I was working with people who were under conservatorship, meaning they were deemed gravely disabled due to their mental illness and were under the care of a public guardian.
In my first year, I was at a practicum called Exodus Recovery. It was an inpatient short-term residential facility for adults suffering from mental illness.
The agency that I worked at was the Howland B. Landgarten Art Therapy Clinic here at LMU, and I worked at Dolores Mission School in Boyle Heights.
The types of clinical experiences our students get training in are wide-ranging, everything from hospitals to residential treatment centers to outpatient clinics and therapeutic schools. While at LMU, students are gaining hours towards registration as an art therapist with the Art Therapy Credentialing Board, at the same time that they're pursuing licensure in the state of California as a marriage and family therapist. At LMU, our program is designed to be fully integrated so that at the same time they're learning the theories of marriage and family therapy, they're also learning how to do art therapy intervention.
So an image I did in Practicum that reflects how I felt about Practicum was based on my art therapy supervisor's recommendation to do art in response to how I worked with my clients and how I saw myself helping them. And I actually used a lot of materials from the hospital, so hospital gloves, band-aids, and so forth, to make a response piece of working with one of my clients.
What I learned most about art therapy and practicum was that sometimes just witnessing is enough. I think art is a great vehicle for that. because it really allows a very special sort of interaction and space between therapist and client. So to just be just a witness of someone through their creative process, through the process of them externalizing something that's so personal and internal, I think that was a really great piece for me to learn of what art can do.
What I learned the most during practicum was flexibility. Since the population I was with, there was a lot of mental illness. I learned flexibility in tailoring the art therapy directives to the clients.
What I learned the most about art therapy in my practicum was that it's an incredible tool to be able to connect to the children in a way that verbal communication would not allow.
Okay, there you go. Let me stop the screen before the next video goes. All right. So that's a little bit from some of the students who were in practicum. They were actual students, not paid actors. And we're gonna continue on our journey with this PowerPoint. Okay. So you have your practicum, and now you get to have a little bit summer courses. We're a 60 unit program, and we're 60 units because that is the amount of units you need to be able to have all the units you are required to meet for licensure in from the Board of Behavioral Sciences. When I was in the program, these summer courses were optional. And I was like, I don't want to take any classes in the summer. And then when I graduated, I'm like, oh no, now I have to take classes before I can get my hours. And didn't know what I was thinking. But now they're sort of embedded and they're there, but they're part of summer session 1. So psychopharmacology, which you learn to understand how medications affect individuals and the kind of medications that are prescribed. We cannot prescribe medications as MFT and art therapists, but we do work with individuals on medications. So it's helpful to understand how they might affect their goals and treatment. Aging and long-term care, and trauma art therapy. This is in the first summer session. And so at LMU, our program is, we're usually done in May. We don't come back until the end of August. So you still have some time off in the summer. You can also spend some more time with us. We were not able to go to Mexico this year, but instead what we're going to be doing is a kind of exciting collaboration. As I mentioned, Dr. Einat Metzel's in Israel, Ana Laura Trevino, who is sort of an associate who we work with in Mexico City. We're going to be doing sort of as international Zoom art therapy sort of workshops. But hopefully next summer, we're able to go to San Miguel de Allende, where we have a partnership with IMPA, which is an art therapy institute in Mexico City. And we meet in San Miguel de Allende and we work together, taking courses with Mexican students from Mexico City and students from LA, working together and then actually doing field work in the surrounding areas. And it's been kind of an amazing experience to broaden the knowledge and what it's like to work in different places and spaces and the different way people conceptualize the therapeutic process. And yeah, it's an amazing opportunity, and we try to really make it cost effective, and and to make it so that every student who has the ability can make it to San Miguel. So then if you come to Mexico, you still have some time off to recoup and relax and rest up before you come into your second year. Now, your second year, you are starting a practicum 20 hours a week, and this practicum will be for the entire duration of the year. And you're only in class on Tuesdays. And here, Dr. Jackson and I teach the cultural issues course, where we dive into more deeply what's already embedded in the program, sort of how to work in the therapeutic practice in a way that is thoughtful, sensitive, and culturally enriching, as well as kind of how to be an activist in the field. You continued your marital and family therapy theories with clinical studies, and now you're more fully embedded in the research project. So the research class, you usually are working with the faculty sponsor, you might be working on some of their research on teams, you might be diving more deeply into your own clinical work, or you might be working on some sort of art show or art dissemination. But a lot of the time you're spending in practicum as you're transitioning into becoming a fully working therapist. So your second practicum, as I mentioned, is 30 weeks, 20 hours per week. and it's more long-term models. And again, you'll have a marital family therapist supervisor on site as well as an art therapy supervisor. And this is a map that needs to be updated. These are just some of the practicum sites. I think we've added about like maybe 10 more. And you can see there are practicums in San Diego County, Ventura County, and all over Los Angeles County. A lot of these practicums, especially in San Diego, Kathleen created relationships with based on where our students were living. So we had a lot of students that were living in San Diego commuting that one day on Tuesday, and we're saying, would it be okay to practice more closely to where I want to live? And so there's always new practicum opportunities popping up. We also try to place students in practicums that have a history of hiring our students when they're completed with the program. So that's what happened to me. I was placed at D.D. Hirsch in Mar Vista, and they hired me right after I graduated. So a lot of our students have moved right into work from places where they've been places they were placed. And some students take a break. Some students then look for work elsewhere, but I'll talk about the employment rate at the end too. All right, now, fourth semester, final semester if you're in the second year. It goes by so fast. You're still only in class on Tuesdays. We're diving a little bit more deeply in human sexuality, talking about ethics. You're taking 5 courses in intimate partner violence, and you're continuing to complete your research or clinical paper. And you're still going into practicum. And then you graduate, and then you're happy. And so after that, I want to just kind of talk about the 3-year program. So the 3-year program is kind of referred to part-time, but I don't think that's quite an accurate description, because there are a certain amount of hours you have to be in practicum in order to maintain and get your licensure and complete it. So the 3rd year of the 3-year program is exactly the same as the 2nd year. You're in class only on Tuesdays, and you're taking 20 hours of practicum. So the final year is the same. What the 3-year track does is it just takes the first year and divides them into 2. So for here, the first year, you're only taking Tuesday, Wednesday classes and not the Thursday classes. The Thursday classes then you take in your 2nd year. In the 2nd semester, you're only taking Tuesday classes, and then the 4th semester, you're taking your Thursday and practicum. So it takes the first year and divides it in 2. The pacing can be a little hard for some people because they feel like the first year is a little busy. 2nd year feels like, okay, I'm not really to feel less busy. And then 3rd year, they're like, okay, I'm really in it now. But it can be helpful for individuals who want to try to maintain work, or who have families, or just want to kind of parse out the expense. There's pros and there are cons of it. If you're in the 2-year track, you follow the same group of your same cohort throughout till you graduate. So you're with the same group of people. If you are in the 3-year program, you start with one group and then you will end with another group, which for some people is great. More connections, more people to offer insights. But for some, it can be a little hard. But we try to have a nice 3-year program cohort that follows each other through, and they're really supportive. One of the things that you might have heard mentioned, I mentioned that Jessica was the head of the Helen B. Lingard Art Therapy Clinic, and one of the students in the practicum video, Susan, talked about how she did her practicum there. So Helen wanted to create a clinic as well, not just to provide an educational space for students at Loyola, but to actually provide a clinic that can help with the community. Now, behind this door where she's cutting this ribbon is not the clinic. It's actually just the art therapy library, because Helen didn't want the clinic to be a place. She wanted to be a group of art therapists that go into the community where they're needed. So even though we do have some programs like the Thomas Riley, where it's a group for pregnant and parenting teens that actually do come to LMU and do the work, a lot of the practicums are placed in schools or other settings where the clinicians go where they're needed. And this has also become a place for students to be able to do their clinical work and practicum training. So some of the students might do their practicum through the clinic. There's also opportunities for postgraduate. What I really appreciate with the program is that how much alumni engagement we have. A lot of alumni get hired as supervisors. They are working in the clinic. Right when you graduate, you can apply for a research or clinical fellowship in the clinic. We also have all these other opportunities that it kind of feels like when you graduate from the program, you're kind of continually a part of a family that can provide educational experiences, like free CEUs, which are continuing education units. So once you get licensed, every 2 years you have to renew your license and kind of keep up to date with things, and we offer some free CEUs, trainings, and opportunities, and constantly sending out job information. So I feel like the benefits of having a small program is that we really get to know you, and you really kind of get, and we really like try to bring you back into the fold. Most of the people who are teaching are alumni of the program themselves, partially because it's such a unique program in the integration. So the instructors have to have the MFT and the art therapy as well. We also have an Art Therapy Research Institute because of how important research is to us. And again, all kinds of dissemination from art shows to journals to books. We also have a journal that we publish, the Journal of Clinical Art Therapy, that is published within the Research Institute. And through the Institute, we offer visiting scholars and faculty talks. There's also an alumni research collective. For students who are interested, who have graduated, aren't interested in continuing research, we offer you support to help you figure out how you can publish and continue to do research on your own, and even use the Institute, or even through the clinic, try to engage in some clinical work for research purposes. And every year we have an annual research symposium where we talk about sort of research in the field. So I think it's a pretty good program. I really appreciate, again, how active it is and how many different ways there are to contribute, and how our alumni have really done so many different things with the degree. From people like, I have a private practice, but I also teach. Other people do more community-based work. And having your own license means you can always kind of have your own practice, which is nice. Community mental health does not pay very well. Private practice can pay very well. There are some people, I don't know if you've looked for therapists in the LA area. It can be really expensive. I've seen people charge $300 an hour. And so what I try to do in my practice is have a sliding scale. So people that $300 an hour is like, that's nothing. Help me then. I actually don't have anyone paying me $300 an hour, but let's say I did. I also go slide my scale down and see some clients for $20 or $50 because I want to try to help individuals in the community who need that support. And so there's a lot of times there's so many different ways that you can practice as an art therapist, from consulting to teaching to having your own practice, working community health, working part-time in hospitals. So I really like the flexibility of the degree. So if you're interested in the program, this is what you need. And this is on our website as well, but I'll go over it. So we need some prerequisites in art. So 18 semester credits or 27 quarter credits. And people of any art making. Psychology, 12 semester credits or 18 quarter credits. And really a child, adolescent, a child, adolescent, or lifespan. So that's considered like developmental, or an abnormal, are the two courses that we're kind of really looking for that you've taken. And then the other units or credits can be made up of whatever psych courses you're interested in. And a lot of these, they have to be taken in accredited college or university, but a lot of these individuals take these courses at community colleges. My background was, I was an art major, so I had all the art done, but I did not have, I was interested in psychology, but I didn't have all of them. I think I was missing one course. So I took that into community college before I applied, or actually after I applied. Because one of the things is we're a little more flexible because of the pandemic about there's some studio art classes that you just can't take. So if you're missing some units, where you can email me and we'll talk about if there a way for you to take that maybe concurrently while you're in the program. And we can talk about the psych requirements as well, but a lot of the psychology courses are virtual and online. You also need a bachelor's degree. We're a master's program, and we are not requiring for the fall 2021 for you to take a GRE or an MAT. We used to require it, but we're not this year because, again, of access. Because of the pandemic, there might not be as many places to access the tests. So it's not required, but we recommend if you want to take it. And why would you want to take it? You're like, why would I take a test? Well, there might be, you might feel like, part of my application doesn't look as strong. A lot of people come to the program after not being in school for a very long time. They might not have really connected to schooling, and their grades might not have been so solid. And so sort of try to bolster the academic portion of their application, they might take a GRE or MAT to just kind of offset something. 2 letters of recommendation. an autobiography that's 10 to 12 pages that really emphasizes why you want to be an art therapist. So I'm sure there's many more layers to your story, but if for 10 to 12 pages, we're looking for those pivotal experiences that show us and help us understand, like, how did you come to this place? Partially because we want to know you a little bit more, but also have a sense of what you are expecting and thinking about the art therapy. I had a lot of people apply to the program that's like, I didn't know it was an art therapy program. I was like, what? Okay. So like making sure that you're kind of aware of what you're getting into, and also kind of how it makes sense for you. And you can talk about life experiences. So if you had therapy yourself, or art, it was really meaningful to you, or you've done any volunteer work, or like anything about how you came to know this was the right path for you. Also a portfolio of 10 images of various media showing your work. If you're an artist and you have like, you're like, I just work in oils, or I do ceramics, or I do performance work, that's okay to show us kind of the breadth of that work. But we are also looking for a variety of material, just because you'll be working with a lot of different individuals who have different needs and might gravitate toward different materials. So we have a lot of people that are just like, and we're not necessarily looking for the aesthetic quality of the work. So if you're sort of a ceramicist and you're like, well, I'm going to just do some paintings for this application, then that's okay. But I think when it comes to the statement where you're going to choose one image to speak about, we're really looking to see if you have an ability to self-reflect through the art. Like, why was that art impactful or meaningful to you? What were the intentions of that making? Did you learn anything from that making? So maybe picking a work that has more personal meaning would be better for that, as opposed to something that you feel like is a really beautiful, like maybe study in something, but it didn't necessarily have that connection for you. There's going to be an online interview, which is not, I guess it's an interview. You're basically answering questions through the application process. So it's embedded into Slate, which is LMU's kind of application program, where you'll answer like 4 questions, and a little heads up. Just kind of know what an MFT is and know what an art therapist is. Just kind of understand. We want just people to know, again, that you're getting an MFT and an art therapy degree. So we just want people to understand like what their understanding of that is. And you don't have to know everything about it, but just so you kind of have a sense of like, okay, I know what this program is. And then there will be a prerequisite checklist. And this is where you can, if you have any courses that are in progress or prerequisites that are in progress, this is when you can tell us like, I'm expected to take it in the summer, or I'll be done before we begin classes in August. All right. How to submit? Well, you can go to the online application, and on LMU, when you can just kind of either through our website or through the graduate application website. And you want to make sure that you go under College of Communication and Fine Arts, because there's a counseling degree through the education department. But again, we are in the Fine Arts and Communication department, and we are a master's in marital family therapy with specialization in art therapy. It's helpful if you have your recommenders' email addresses. So the way the letters of rec work are kind of how they all work now, where you just send an email address, and then the recommender gets a prompt and says, please submit a letter of rec. It's again very helpful to let them know that's coming, and have that ready, have your autobiography ready, because you're kind of just uploading things into the space. And then there'll be a time for you to answer some questions. And again, it's helpful to get started a little early. You can always go back and input things. It's kind of helpful to go through it and see what the steps are, so you're not like waiting on November 25th when they're due and then realizing like, oh no. So it's kind of helpful to go through that earlier, and you can like go back to it. So, and again, November 25th is the deadline, application deadline. We usually bring everyone in for a group interview on campus in February. This year it's February 6th and 7th. We're probably not going to be doing that. So we're probably gonna have a group interview through like Zoom. We like to do a group interview just so we can see how everyone's working in dynamics. But if you're asked for an interview, it means like you've already made it to the next step of the application process. So if you get a request for an interview on the 6th or 7th, that's a pretty good indicator that, okay, like you've made it through. So the turnaround for this is like applications are due November. When we come back, we try to kind of look over the applications. There's the winter break. So come January, we sort of try to make a determination and let you know whether you're coming in for an interview for February. And then we pretty quickly will know after February. So probably around March, you'll know for sure whether you're in the program. And that gives you a couple, and then classes usually start August, end of August. Okay. Now, it is not a cheap program. It is a 60-unit program, and right now the tuition rate is $1,385 per unit. So how do you do this? Many people have. I have paid off my student loans. It has been 10 years, but I did do it. And so there are scholarships and there are departmental awards, and we really encourage you to look for some of those external scholarships. And I'll give you sort of the names of the organizations that sometimes offer scholarships to our students. Jennifer Bond is the Assistant Director of Graduate Program Scholarships and Financial Aid and can kind of help figure out how to do this. And we also have graduate assistantships. So in other universities, you might, as a grad student, TA in a course in an undergraduate course, but we don't have an undergraduate art therapy program. So what we do is we place students in grad assistantships in the art department, and within our own department, who help instructors with their research or with their course care. So it's another way to kind of work while in the program that's very flexible. People ask if you can work. You can see that the courses aren't every day, and your practicum, when you get to practicum, it's a little harder. But I worked, while I was in the program, I worked as a graduate assistant, a TA, and a tutor, and I kind of like found kind of various ways to do it. I do well that way because if I have 7 hours to do my homework, I will be making a snack, I'll be walking around, I'll be making another snack, and then I like take like out of that 7 hours, actually do an hour's worth of work. So sometimes I need to have like, I only have an hour to do this, and it helps me focus. Other people are not like that and find working to be kind of difficult and really want to saturate themselves in the program. But again, there are also a lot of our students, and again, it's hard to know the landscape of things, but there are a lot of students who apply for scholarships that give either tuition forgiveness or up to like $20,000 to $40,000 if you stay in community mental health, because they understand that like programs are expensive and they want people to work in the community mental health. But a lot of people are like, no, I want to go to my private practice so I can charge $300 an hour so then I can pay off my student debt and feel like, you know, a little more safe and secure. And again, it's like these programs, we try to help you. Right now, I'm having the graduate assistant looking at and sort of collating all the scholarships and applications and grants so our students have an access to that resource so they can start applying for those. And we've had a tremendous amount of success of the percentage of our students who actually get these grants and scholarships when they're available. It's quite impressive. Kathleen has been really great in working with people and helping them with applications, and we're always overly represented. I think it's because of the information we give to the students and also the training we provide. Yeah, but it's expensive. Campus support. So some of you might be LMU undergrad, some of you might not know about LMU. Being in a smaller private school, you have a lot more access to support. And what I like about it too is that the students sometimes will say like, we want this or we need this, and it happens. So right now we have a student art therapy student association that just was created by Dr. Jackson out of looking at student need. So you don't get kind of lost. There's a lot of, if you have an interest or you're excited about something, usually there's ways to support. But also there's other parts of your identity that you might want to kind of be part of the student affiliate groups. To kind of continue the work. I'm part of the LGBT faculty staff network, which works with the LGBT student services. And so constantly kind of thinking about other ways to help the community, help LMU. We have a great, Alexander Justice is our personal liaison to the library for people that are interested in research. We have a great academic resource center for people who are like, how do I write a literature review and get support when it comes to graduate, even the amount of reading. So there's a lot of support on campus. Professional organizations. So these are the 3 organizations you should kind of look into and look at their websites. One is the American Art Therapy Association. That is the governing body of this field. They're currently having a virtual symposium on October 24th. Oh, is that today? Well, today. Oh, oops. And November 1st and November 7th. So, and they have this symposium every year, or this conference, I should say. This is the 51st annual conference. And there's the Southern California Art Therapy Association, which is SoCal ATA. If you're in Southern California, it's a great way to be a part of the board and be really active in the field itself. Again, they're like really needing people to help bolster this field. So you can really be, if you're interested in leadership positions in ATA, you can apply and it's available upon graduation. You can also join as a student for a discounted rate. But also we are part of the Marital Family Therapy CAMPT Association, California Association of Marital Family Therapists. So looking there can also help you understand, because you cannot practice primarily as an art therapist in California and have your own practice and be your own client and see clients. So that's why a lot of art therapy degrees in California are coupled with another degree. You might have heard of like an LPCC degree. We are only an MFT degree. If you're interested in sitting for an LPCC, you can look into that transferring. We tried to see if it was economical, it just wasn't. And if you want to work in other states, you want to look at the other states' requirements. We've had a lot of students have a really easy success coming from our program and transferring over to another state, and some that had some hiccups because different states, again, just like state to state. So if you know you want to kind of move into another state at some point, look into it. Again, it's not impossible. It just can be harder for certain states. Sometimes it's as simple as sitting for their exam. Sometimes it's taking additional courses, and sometimes it's more complicated. All right, so employment, will you get a job? Most of our students do have jobs. 96% were employed 6 months after graduation in 2019. The 2020 graduates, it's been a weird year. So 9 of them have got employment, but 6 took the summer off and started to look right when the pandemic was starting to happen. So it's kind of like, okay. But 1 is still looking, 1 is not looking, 3 did not respond. So out of the ones that did look for jobs, most of them got a job. 1 has still not. And again, we keep our program small and we keep our practical connections pretty tight because we don't want to oversaturate the field. We don't want to put out more people than what we think there can be jobs. But the great thing is having an MFT and an art therapy degree kind of gives you an edge out because there's a lot of MFT programs and they have like a lot of people that like get out as MFTs. But having that kind of extra kind of component of art therapy and a degree, I think helps you kind of stand out. But also you can apply for any MFT job or any therapy job. So it's not just, so sometimes individuals are just looking to hire you as an MFT and you bring the art therapy in with you. And sometimes they're looking for the art therapy. So, and the great thing is because we have a lot of practicum sites, there's a lot of people who know what art therapy is, and especially in Los Angeles, there's a lot of people who know what art therapy is. So we've had good, I think, pretty good success with employing students. And we also are just starting I don't know if you've heard of this thing called Instagram. I don't know. I'm not on any social media myself, so I feel very like behind on this, but our graduate assistant is kind of currently trying to keep up to date our new Instagram. So if you want to look and see what is happening currently, this is a good way to kind of peek in, see some art that's being made and some endeavors that are happening there. All right. So it's at LMU Art Therapy. If that's enough information to give you. I don't know how Instagram works. Okay. So just a reminder, I'm gonna take some questions from you all, but there's some special interest sessions coming up after this. So 12 to 3 p.m. is drop-in admission advising. 12 p.m. to 12:45 is the career and professional development, the graduate students of LMU. And then 1 to 1:45 is career professional development and financial aid. So if you're interested in popping into those, please do. Now, what I'm going to do is take some questions, and how I'm going to do this is I'll just take questions through the chat first, and then I'll stop the recording, and then I can take questions just from your voices. So if you have any questions, please let me know in the chat if you have any questions about admissions or anything that you, the acceptance rate per year. Thank you so much. So the acceptance rate per year is, depends. So right now we have we accept 20 students and right now we have about 50 applications that are already been started. So it depends, we might get sometimes 60 applicants. It's a niche field. So sometimes we get 60 applicants and we have 20 slots. Sometimes we have less. So it really depends on how many people apply. Good question. So if you are finishing up your undergrad, you just let us know when your degree will post. So it doesn't really matter if you haven't completed your bachelor's by the time you apply, as long as you'll have your bachelor's by the time will be accepted. And for those of you that were stuck in the waiting room, I apologize. I got so into my presentation that I'll be happy to sit with you after we're done and kind of go over some things again. All right. So I will stop the recording, and then those of you who just came in and want to hear a little bit about it, I can go over my spiel. And those of you who have questions you want to ask, please do so. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. And